Unit 4, Part 1. Unit 4 is on symbolizing English sentences. Let me give you a sense of where we are in the course. In Unit 2, we began on sentential logic, and we were introduced to the distinction between simple and compound sentences, and introduced to the idea of a sentential operator. Right? So any compound sentence, we learned, was one where a sentential operator builds a complex sentence from other sentences. Remember, a sentential operator, an expression containing blanks, where if you replace the blanks with sentences, you build another sentence. All such sentences, all sentences built with sentential operators, are compound or equivalently complex sentences. Okay? And simple sentences are defined as those which are not compound. In Unit 3, which was on computing truth values, we were introduced to the symbolism, where a special set of 5 sentential operators received symbols, right? And, or, if then, if blank, then blank, not blank, and blank, if and only if blank. Those sentential operators got symbols. We learned to symbolize English. We learned that those are the symbols for those sentential operators. We learned how to read formulas with regard to the parentheses and whatnot. That tells you about the order of the construction of the formula. Now, in Unit 4, we're symbolizing English sentences, which is basically learning how to translate English sentences into symbols. That prepares us for Unit 5, which is, as I've said, the climax of the first part of the course. The first part goes up to the end of Unit 6. That's when you do your first exam. It's on Units 1 to 6. Unit 5 is the truth table test for an argument's validity. Of course, validity is, again, the master concept of the course. And in Unit 5, we will learn how to actually show of a argument form that it is valid. We will show an argument form that it is valid. So you know, Unit 5 is the truth table test for an argument's validity. You know a bit about truth tables now. In Unit 3, I think, was it Unit 2? I think Unit 3 you were introduced to the truth tables for the basic sentential operators and how to compute truth tables. Much of that is what's going to go into the truth table test for an argument's form, because it'll be just a truth table test of the various formulas which make up the argument form. Right? What is an argument? An argument is a set of sentences separated into premises and conclusion when the premises give you reason for believing the conclusion. And so an argument is a set of sentences. Formulas are our translation of sentences. That's what we do in this Unit 4. So when we have a symbolization of an argument form, we'll now, in Unit 5, be able to test that argument form for validity. Right? So in this Unit 4, is going to allow us to move from a particular argument spoken in English or written in English, translated into symbols, and then we'll be able to test that argument form for validity. That is, we'll be able to list the base columns. So when you have a formula, right, you've got that formula is presented in terms of sentential variables, right, the P's and the Q's, like P or Q in brackets, hook R. P, Q, R, those are sentential variables. We'll be listing the base columns, just like we did for the basic truth tables for the sentential operators in Unit 3. Listing those base columns, and then those base columns will give you an exhaustive list of all the possible truth value combinations for the sentential variables. So if we're just testing P or Q, right? The base columns are just P and Q, and you have true, false, false for P, true, false for Q. That's all the possible combinations, and then we can compute the truth table for all the formulas that make up the argument form, and we'll be able to examine to see if there are any counterexamples. So remembering back to the first unit, section 4 and 5, the ones I highlighted as the most important, first section, chapter 1, sections 4 and 5, we're introduced to the idea, the crucial way we're going to understand the idea of validity, right? An argument, a particular contentful, meaningful English argument, written with English sentences, an argument, a particular argument, is valid if and only if its form is valid, and its form is valid if and only if it has no counterexamples, that is, substitution instances where all the premises are true and the conclusion false. Well, that's what, so we could then already, right at the beginning, we could say, if we were given an invalid argument form, we could show it was invalid by presenting a counterexample, but it's not until we've worked through the notions of truth functionality, and we understand how our system of logic is truth functional, and how all our formulas are such that the truth value of every formula in our system can be determined, can be computed, given merely the truth value of the components, right? And that's going to be listed in those base columns. We'll now be able to give an exhaustive truth table for an argument form, and only then, in Unit 5, the climax of the first part of the course, we'll be able to show of a valid argument form that it is not possible for it to have any counterexamples, right? The truth table, when we put it up, and I'll be saying all this again when we do Unit 5, when we examine it, when we compute all the truth values for all the formulas in the argument, we'll be able to examine the truth table and see if there are any lines where all the premises come out true, any rows in the truth table where all the premises come out true and the conclusion comes out false. That is, we'll be looking for a counterexample, and we'll be able to say if there is no counterexample in that truth table, that is, if there is no row in the truth table where all the premises come out true and the conclusion false, then no counterexample is possible, right? Because the truth values of the P's and the Q's, the sentential variables, are the only thing that matter for determining the truth value of the formulas themselves, because it's a truth functional system of logic. And so if there's no counterexample in that list, with the exhaustive list of truth value combinations in the base columns, no counterexample is possible. So we would have shown that it is not possible for there to be a counterexample. So it's not until Unit 5 that we can actually show and that we have the resources available to be able to make the claim that here is an argument form that could not possibly have any counterexamples. So the way to getting there is this Unit 4, where we learn to symbolize English sentences, and that will allow us to move from presentation of an argument in English, right, written in English words, to the presentation of that argument symbolically. And then we'll have this symbolic expression of the argument, and then we'll be able to test that argument's form for logical validity in Unit 5. So that's where Unit 4 fits into the overall scheme. I'll start a new part and continue.